Hello everybody, welcome to the Little Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video. Trying to hit 30k subs over here, so that subscription would be much appreciated. A ton of you guys have been hitting that sub button lately because you may have noticed we've been uploading a lot over here, and I've been appreciating it because it is both easy and fun, because I love yapping unfiltered instead of feeling insecure with my other videos where I'm like, I don't need to make sure I check every box here. No, we're talking off of the dome over here, and I wanted to talk about the Toronto Raptors. Because what are the Raptors? What are they doing? What are the Toronto Raptors genuinely? Because that's kind of a question I've been asking for quite a while. And throughout this rebuild, they just have not had a conventional rebuild at all. And that's not that an unconventional rebuild is necessarily a problem, but I would say that it can be. And it's not good to not have a clear direction. And I feel like Toronto hasn't had a clear direction for quite some time. They made the playoffs after Kawhi, like I think 2 years in a row after Kawhi left. I think their season got fucked up by the bubble. And didn't they actually, I think the season after it, they played in Florida for like most of the year. I can't remember the specifics, but that was some weird stuff. Eventually, Kyle Lowry ends up going to the Miami Heat. And then eventually Pascal Siakam gets traded to the Indiana Pacers, and then you are left in the Scottie Barnes era. We are officially in the rebuild, but in the Scottie Barnes era for the last half of the year last year, and then this entirety of a year, it's been kind of weird because Scottie Barnes is good, and there's some good players on this roster, and the Raptors are generally pretty well coached. So, like, there's a lot of stuff working here to make them not a complete disaster, but that ends up putting them in kind of a bad position as an NBA team where they aren't, like, in a position to get a high draft pick. So you're not setting yourselves up to get some prospects to dig you out of this hole. So the other way to do it is by making some trades, and they did the RJ Barrett, OG Anunoby swap, and they recently traded for Brandon Ingram for pennies on the dollar. So it seems like they're trying to compete, like they're trying to be a good team, because at this point, you have a lot of money wrapped up in these players. Scottie Barnes and Brandon Ingram are both making $38 million. Emmanuel Quickley is making 32.5. RJ Barrett is making 28 million. Jakob Poeltl is making 20, and his extension starting in 27-28 gets him up to 27-30. So that's quite a bit. You have Ochai Agbaji and Colin Murray Boyles, who I guess was probably their draft pick. Grady Dick, like these are not terrible contracts, but it's a lot of money. So you have a roster of a bunch of guys who are starter caliber players. Scottie Barnes, starter caliber. Ingram is, Quickly is, RJ is, Jakob is. I think Ochai Agbaji is probably the most underrated player on this team. I think he's a really good 3-and-D forward. Grady Dick actually had a really good start to his rookie year, and then that kind of dissipated as it went along, but I think he has a good amount of potential as a scorer and specifically as a movement shooter. But I also don't think that this is a conglomeration of talent that is particularly well fit, and fit is a very important thing in today's NBA. It's specifically the forwards here: Scottie Barnes, RJ Barrett, and Brandon Ingram. I have seen that apparently the Raptors are considering moving on from RJ Barrett because they recognize what I do, which is this is kind of a weird-ass fit, because between Ingram, Scottie, and RJ, while none of them are bad three-point shooters, none of them are good ones either. Not really. I think Scottie Barnes had a career year shooting the ball, I'm pretty sure. I also think he fell victim, similar to Grady Dick, of like a really hot start to the year shooting, and then it gradually got worse as time went on. But I think his numbers still, oh my God, he shot 27% from three on the year. I fucking lied. That's crazy. Am I wrong? Did he not start the year good? Am I mixing up his 23-24 season with his 24-25 season? First 14 games. No, he shot 31% from three. I guess I'm thinking of the year before it where he had a promising year. I didn't realize his shit dipped down to 27. Good God. Yeah, 34% on 5 attempts last year. Safe to say, dude's not a particularly strong shooter, though. And then we get RJ Barrett, who I know had a career year from outside, at least technically not his best percentage, but his second best volume. All right. I'm just a fraud, as it turns out. I'm pretty sure I reviewed these numbers before this. But yeah, 35% on 5 3-point attempts per game. Okay, I'm pretty sure he started the year hot because I remember his ass shooting 40% from 3. I want to be pissed. Let's find out. No, yeah, okay. I know nothing. I could have swore he shot way better from 3 than that. Same goes for Scottie Barnes. Yeah. Dude, if both of those guys are suspect 3-point shooters, and then you get Brandon Ingram, who is a guy who has generally shot well percentage-wise, but not been a high-volume guy. He actually increased his volume quite a bit last year, but it was only 18 games, so not exactly a huge sample size, but he did go from 3.8 three-point attempts to 6.4, so at least he seemingly got the message. He's a career 36% three-point shooter, and for the last, basically since New Orleans onward, he is a 37.5% three-point shooter on 5 attempts per game, which isn't a lot. He's taking twice as many 2-pointers per game, so still not a high-volume guy and still not a super great percentage guy. So you have all 3 of those guys who are not really strong shooters, and then Emmanuel Quickley's got to be the best shooter there. Yeah, 38% last year on 6.8 attempts per game. I don't actually know what Grady Dick ended up shooting on the season from outside. 35%. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I know he averaged like 19 at the start of the year, or maybe I don't because I don't seem to know anything about this team. I remember that happening, though. Ochai Agbaji, also very good. Like I mentioned, 40% from outside. They can shoot. Quickly, Agbaji, I think Jamal Shed is also... No, 32%. Man, the Raptors just can't shoot. Jakob Poeltl can't shoot either. I think they just have to trade RJ Barrett. I don't think there's any way that that's going to work unless 2 out of 3 of these guys at least have good 3-point shooting seasons. RJ had a slightly below average one. Scottie had a horrible one. And Ingram had a pretty damn good one, but again, it was 18 games. So that fit is the weird part, and then they also don't have a particularly strong bench. I don't know anything about their rookie. Perhaps he could be a big part of that. Maybe he becomes a starter. I don't know. But you have Ochai, and you have Grady Dick coming off of the bench. Jamal Shed is pretty cool, even though he did not shoot threes well apparently last year. I don't know. It's not a very good team. But I think, that said, still think they can be a playoff team in the East, especially if RJ Barrett is traded for just like a good starter who shoots really well. But I don't know. This video is me asking you, specifically if you're a Toronto Raptors fan, this video is me asking you, what's the plan? How do you feel about the Raptors the last couple of years? I didn't even mention that they parted ways with, or mutually agreed to part ways with, or whatever the fuck. Masai Ujiri, they definitely let him go at a weird time, so that doesn't seem to be a positive sign that they feel great about the team. I don't know. The Raptors are just an enigma to me. They have been the past couple of years. Maybe I just have too many blind spots. I clearly exposed a few of them because I definitely thought RJ and Scottie Barnes shot the 3 ball better, but yeah, that is it. Thank you to Nick for editing this video, and goodbye.